Other interesting cultural news, you have Joe Rogan melting Jim Gaffigan with facts and logic about Trump on January 6th. Now, Jim Gaffigan used to be a moderately successful comedian, but then the improbable happened. Trump became president, and his brain just melted into nothing. His brain is broken. He now spends most of his life, stand-up and out of stand-up, just perpetually crying and complaining about Trump, which is a fascinating phenomenon. I never saw it with Bush or any other politicians, where the other side would become so illogical and just focused on that person, blaming them for perpetually everything, including the weather. And it's fascinating to see Joe Rogan come out and they're having the interview and just completely. I'm surprised Jim didn't cry. So this is the first part where Joe's with him.
But I think the January 6th thing is pretty bad.
Well, the January 6th thing is bad, but also the intelligence agencies were involved in provoking people to go into the Capitol building. That's a fact.
So wait a minute. You're saying that guy, what's his name?
Ray Epps?
Yeah, you really think that he
I don't know, but I do know that every other...
pretty apparent. I think he's going to sue Fox.
I think every other person who was involved in January 6th, who was involved in coordinating a break-in into the Capitol and in instigating people breaking, they were all arrested. This guy wasn't. Not only that, they were defending him in the New York Times, the Washington Post, those different things, because saying that Fox News is up.
There are also many instances where I actually heard you had protesters by the gates, and they had people hear Ray Epps egg people on, saying, hey, do it, which, historically speaking, the government has done many morally vacuous things similar to that, where they push people to the brink of breaking, and then when they do, they arrest them and say they're successful, they did something good for society. So it wouldn't be the first time they did it.
Unjustly accused him of instigating. Well, he clearly instigated. He did it on camera. I don't know if he was a Fed. I know a lot of people think he was a Fed. The people that were there were calling him a Fed. What I do know is when they asked the FBI said, we can't tell you whether or not there were people that were there that were
and you can always trust them, always.
Doing that. Now, there's been reports that there was hundreds of agents that were there that were doing that. I don't know if that's true either. But I do know that they do use agent provocateurs to disrupt peaceful protests. It's a common tactic. What they do is, say if there's like the World Trade Organization is a great example. And that was in, I think, the 90s in Seattle. And so what they did was they were protesting the World Trade Organization. They were doing it peacefully. It was a big problem. So what they did is they sent in, allegedly, agent provocateurs. They started smashing buildings and lighting things on fire. Now it's not a peaceful protest. Now they could bring in the police. Now they can start arresting people. And then they created a no protest zone where literally if you had a pin on your jacket that was the WTO with a red line through it, they would not let you cross. You could not cross with a pin that was against the WTO and go to work. There was a no protest zone.
In America.
So they silenced protest, which is a part of our freedom of speech. So this is a tactic that some government agencies use to stop
but
peaceful
wait a minute.
protest.
All right, so what you're saying is on January 6th, that this event that obviously Trump organized. Forget about the Giuliani stuff and the...
Trump has done a lot of things in terms of the organization. If you look at his speech just minutes before everything went down, he was telling people to peacefully protest, which is also a double standard in terms of never, ever, ever does when political figures on the left, when they talk about anything emotionally, politically charged, even when they have actually people promulgating violence, no one ever goes after those political people. It's a very interesting phenomenon. It's only with Trump.
Whether they thought that it was...
He definitely encouraged people to protest.
Yes. But, all right, so you're saying that, like, the FBI and Nancy Pelosi... And
I'm not saying Nancy Pelosi.
No, but, like, you're saying that, like, they're like, we'll make this, instead of an awkward protest, we'll encourage it so that it'll backfire on Trump rather than being this...
Trump is also not in charge of that security. Again, I've read different reports, and I know some people are wondering, didn't Nancy Pelosi have kind of jurisdiction over that area, and didn't she deny requests for increased Capitol Police? So there are a lot of interesting contradictory stories here.
Rising of people that believe that there was election corruption.
I think it's certainly
I think
possible.
that would be hard. You think it's possible? I think it's possible.
You don't think it's, wait a minute, you think it's hard to do?
I think that, that the FBI or the CIA saying, hey, Trump lost this election. Because here's what you're kind of implying. Trump lost the election. He is such an amazing communicator, and he's convinced this loyal base that there was election interference. We don't want them to protest. How we can end this is if we encourage people to go beyond protesting to essentially go into the Capitol and take a shit in the hallway. I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit.
Yeah.
But, I don't see why that would be.
It's ridiculous. No one crapped in the hallway there. That's what they do in San Francisco. There's a time and place for everything.
Of use. I'm more suspicious why Trump didn't call for backup when, for the Capitol Police. You know what I mean? It's there would.
I'm trying to think of a good analogy to my understanding. That'd be if someone is throwing beer cans on my neighbor's lawn, or not even my neighbor's lawn. Let's say 2 blocks down the road, there's someone throwing beer cans on someone's lawn, and there's someone sitting on the lawn with a lawn chair who doesn't belong there, and then blaming me because I didn't call the police for that. What? That's not my jurisdiction. That's nothing to do with my yard. Or more accurately, the rental yard. But
Michael Flynn's brother was, there's way more conspiracy stuff against Trump, and then I think the slim likelihood that people were like, oh, Trump's a problem, let's just get these people that are loyal to Trump to run into the Capitol so that we can arrest 300 people. Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't make sense. No, I think it's a standard tactic, especially.
Jim's face is almost like a. Can't try and think of an adolescent girl who's just upset all the time, ugh.
When someone is the enemy of the intelligence agencies. With Trump, that's absolutely the case. Trump set himself up against the intelligence agencies. He did it openly and he did it brazenly. And
I'm actually surprised he didn't get JFK, to be honest.
a lot of people think it's very dangerous. The intelligence agencies are very important. You want to find out what's going on in other countries. You want to find out what the threats to America are. You want to find out what terrorist activities are going to be taking place and stop them before.
And, JFK had his problem with the intelligence agencies.
I mean, look, it's unchecked power, right? That's the deep state. It's unchecked power. And I think Trump was very open about his disdain for the intelligence agencies. He created enemies in the intelligence agencies. It's standard for intelligence agencies in this country to encourage agent provocateurs or to employ agent provocateurs.
And so you're saying when he was in Helsinki and he was saying, I believe Putin more than my intelligence community, that was something the intelligence community was like, we're going to get him.
Well, I think they were going to get him in any way that they could because he's an enemy of the intelligence agencies. And he was openly talking about...
That'd also be an interesting poll in the United States. Who do people trust more, Putin or U.S.? Who do people trust? Putin, a foreign leader who has a lot of stuff in the closet? Or do they believe the U.S.-based intelligence agencies who also have a lot of stuff in the closet?
About them being incompetent and being corrupt, and he fired Comey, and he was against the FBI, and look, it's a very dangerous thing. You talk to people that are in intelligence agencies, it's a very dangerous thing for a president to be at war with the intelligence agencies and to do it so publicly. And I think it's without a doubt, when you have a gigantic, massive protest that a lot of people think is a threat to democracy, you have these people that are saying the election was rigged, and they're on the Capitol lawn, they're screaming and yelling. I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that they would encourage people to do things that were unlawful. Instead of peacefully protesting, which is what everybody was doing on the outside, which is totally legal, to take that and escalate it to entering into the Capitol. Now you can lock things down, and now you have real clear evidence that this president is responsible for this insurrection attempt, and this is dangerous.
Which was 110% the message we heard during the midterms. That was all we heard about, was this specific incident. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that it was done because it's extremely politically beneficial.
Is a threat to our democracy, and he's never going to be president again. We're going to indict him. We're going to go after him. We're going to do all these different things. I think it's not like there's a lot of shenanigans going on both sides. It's not like a clear cut, like he shouldn't have done that and they should have done this. It's like there's a lot of fuckery, and there's a lot that's been going on throughout history. Whenever people have unchecked power and unchecked influence, and they have enemies. And Trump was their enemy.
Extremely articulate and precise and true. Now, this next clip is, oddly enough, we won't watch the whole thing, but again, it's another highlight from the interview where Mr. Gaffigan just melts down and completely out of left field just goes, "Oh yeah, Trump." So it's highly entertaining.
The
Joe Rogan experience.
Why isn't there this groundswell? I mean, outside of the obvious thing of financial interests of major corporations corrupting our political system, but like, why is there not kind of people saying this is insane?
Because of the financial issue. It's 100% because.
And this is talking about the issue of Sam Bankman-Fried getting off scot-free for some of the allegations. With the United States, he donated about $40 million to politicians, and some thought that was a corrupt thing since obviously he stole the money, but those charges were dropped because of the extradition, in part with the Bahamas. Which is fascinating to see which policies, foreign policies and rules that the government, U.S., chooses to follow and when they follow or not to.
Because they've co-opted the media, and the media doesn't report on all these things. You know, the media doesn't report on so many things that are bad for you because it's bad for their interests.
Well, let me ask you this, and we'll be right back to the Jim Gaffigan Show in a minute. I'm here with Joseph Rogan. No, let me ask.
D- for a joke. Again, I'm by no means a comedian, but just to make a joke about not remembering the most famous podcaster's name, it's really not that funny. Well, perhaps for Jim Gaffigan, his talent level, it might be funny for him now.
Answer this. So, all right. So, Sam Bankman-Fried
just got off of all charges.
Off of all charges.
That's totally not corrupt.
No,
by the way, he deserves to be free.
You think he deserves?
Yeah,
to
go
be
back
free?
to doing meth and hanging out with that little floozy in that house that you had with 40 other people and banging each other.
The girl who looked like Milhouse from The Simpsons, and she, of course, as soon as times got tough, she turned over. I mean, metaphorically, and gave him up to the government entities and ratted him out.
Occasionally, when he would be in court in a suit, I would be like, "Ah, oh, that's so cute. He's got a suit on." It's kind of like a boy at a bar mitzvah for his confirmation.
Right?
It's just like, "Oh, look at him in a suit,
like a real man."
But all right, let me ask you this:
Feds drop campaign contributions charge against Sam Bankman-Fried. But is that all his charges about everything? Are there other charges that are still available, or is he a free man now?
I think they said he had to get a haircut, which is really weird.
Okay, federal prosecutors are dropping campaign finance violation charges against alleged crypto crook Sam Bankman-Fried over a legal snafu in his extradition from the Bahamas to the U.S. Still faces 12 other charges in the case. 5 more of those counts are still in question because they were added after he was extradited. It seems to me like the fix is in.
Well, let me ask you this. All right, so any comedian would look at that and go, all right, so somebody in the Justice Department was like, he donated a lot to our people, let's make this go away. But here's a question I have. So there is that that level of corruption, but do you look at that level of corruption and see it as equal to what Trump has been repeatedly busted as? Do you see those as equal, or
out of nowhere, just everything is somehow correlated to Trump with Jim Gaffigan, and his brain is broken. It's like melted into nothingness.
do you see like that as because like I wonder if, like, to me it's like, like the indictments against Trump, I'm like, it's gonna keep going, right? There's gonna be.
I think that's something that the left and the right can probably agree on. The indictments will keep coming. Just a matter of, are they legitimate and will they stick? That's another thing, itself. And are they politically charged? Well, can't help but notice he's got the same things that he's done, other politicians has done, but they've not got prosecuted at all.
More things. Whereas, like, this is vague corruption. I'm not justifying it, but
It's pretty precise what Sam Bankman-Fried did.
like, I feel like some people see this as totally equal. You think both sides are equally bad.
It's that you would have to go over the case, right? Because the way it's been described to me and the way the C.
And fun little fact, this is a YouTube video on Powerful JRE, which is Joe Rogan's channel. And the top comment, actually two of the top comments, the first one has 1.7 thousand likes. And that says, quote, "I love how Jim's argument is essentially, I know nothing, but Trump is bad, right?" Unquote. Now, the second most popular comment of 2,765 comments is, quote, "Jim's IQ is whatever CNN tells him," unquote. That subsequently got 1.1 thousand likes. So, at least there's some people in the comments who have a modicum of intelligence. A little faith in humanity is restored. Perhaps just a bit.
CEO was looking at it. He was saying that this is fraud. This is like straight out fraud. It's financial fraud, and they were taking clients' money and using it in a way that they were not supposed to. They were funneling it off to Alameda. Yeah. He was
also a big red flag. Anytime anything, whether it's a business, a stock, or whatever investment, if they tell you they're going to have guaranteed returns, that's just red flag number one. Nothing in life is guaranteed except taxes and death for most people. But that was another thing with FTX. Everyone was saying, I believe they actually had allegations of guaranteed returns, which, again, isn't possible because you can't guarantee everything in life.
Not being honest about his connections to that. I don't know all the absolute specifics of the case, but the way it's been described to me is that there is not enough regulation in cryptocurrency, and that these people are allowed to do some really shady shit, and that these people took it to the far end of this.
Right.
And, they were making insane amounts of money, and they were doing amphetamines, and they were hanging out and having this polyamorous lifestyle with these bunch of super nerds
But
banging each other.
You shouldn't go to jail for that. Not yet.
Not for banging each other.
You shouldn't go to jail for defrauding millions upon millions upon millions of people, from stealing from them. You shouldn't go to jail for that? Does Jim not know? Well, I was going to say, does he not know laws? But we have to remember, he is lower, perhaps, on the evolutionary pole than most of us in terms of his intelligence.
No, I think that's fun. I'm happy that they get to live like that. Like these socially awkward weirdos, all of a sudden they're super rich. If they were doing it above ground, rather, everything was cool, I would be celebrating them. I'd be like, yay, look at these, they won. Yeah. But a lot of people lost a lot of money. And, there was
It is fascinating to see how many brainless, celebrities actually endorsed FTX and were paid millions of dollars to tell people, this is a great opportunity, you need to get in on this. Yeah, not so much. Which is, again, why I'm especially pessimistic when it comes to any celebrity endorsement, especially when it's not in their purview. Like Tom Brady telling me about FTX is the dumbest endorsement ever. He throws sports balls for a living. If he was recommending a new brand of pigskin for a sports ball that's slightly more aerodynamic or something, that would make sense. His job is to throw sports balls. Or football, if you want to get technical. But all these celebrities are going, oh yeah, FTX is great. You had the same thing with Larry David, one of the best comedians in history. Even he did a commercial for FTX. Many celebrities did this.
Also, they were being exposed by competitors, by Binance, and then it turns out that Binance is fucked too, and they're up their ass with a microscope, and they might have all sorts of problems with fraud and all sorts of other things that are being lobbied against them or leveled against them. I don't know. It's a lot of complicated financial stuff that's outside of my realm of understanding.
Yeah, it is interesting because the basic premise, again, I know nothing about crypto.
Oh, I was going to say he was accurate. He just stopped and said, I know nothing, because that, at least he'd be honest.
But isn't the basic premise of crypto is like there's no regulations? That's
Yeah.
this currency is outside of. It's not tied to the dollar. It's there's an independence there. Whereas, so you can't compare that to Martha Stewart going to jail for insider trading.
Well,
Right.
yeah.
Well, he had one thing right. Yeah, those are different charges as well. She was insider trading.
I mean, the Martha Stewart thing is interesting because
And remember, you can only do that if you're part of the government. Nancy Pelosi is the most successful stock trader in history, or her husband, coincidentally, better than Warren Buffett, who, again, he's the most successful legitimate trader in history. They call him the Oracle of Omaha, famously being headquartered over in Omaha, Nebraska.
Congress does what she did all the time. They get access to
Oh
information.
yeah, that happened
place
during the
bet.
pandemic.
Yeah,
Tons of times.
I mean, and it's not just a Democrat thing. Everybody points to Nancy Pelosi.
Right.
It's
Oh,
a
yeah.
Republican. It's like literally
And it's legal for them to do it. That's the astonishing thing. If a CEO does that, or if you and I do that, that's jail time. But not for them.
100% black and white. I mean, excuse me, red and blue. It's like
Yeah.
across the board.
Yeah.
They're all doing it. And it's just something that I think everyone does that's there. They understand like bills that are going to be passed, and they immediately start buying stocks. And they've always done that. And it's
Yeah.
one of the reasons why they want to be congressmen in the first place. They have access to that
It's one of the
information.
reasons why they go in with a certain income and leave millionaires.
Just not just millionaires, like insanely rich, hundreds of millions of dollars for
And I believe their income is, quote unquote, only, I say only because it's more money than people can possibly fathom in many cases, about $250,000 per year, plus unbelievable healthcare benefits. I'd love to see what kind of supplements they're taking to live to be 90 plus years old and still somehow in the same job and still alive. Although, cognitively speaking, that's a topic in and of itself for another time.
six-figure salaries.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, look, Nancy Pelosi is a better stock trader than both Warren Buffett and George Soros.
Her husband is an investment guy. Right?
Yeah.
Or he
Coincidence?
was an investment.
Well, he is when he works with her.
Right.
Like she knows things. He bets. He places the stock options and whee.
Right, and it's
Then he gets hit in
but
the head with
that's
a hammer.
also. I mean, I remember like all the senators that pulled out, right, like Richard Byrd and Kelly Loeffler and all these guys, right when the pandemic, and they sold their stocks and then they said everything's fine, right? So it's like some of it is selling stocks. It's not necessarily even buying them.
Sure.
Does he not know how stock trading stocks works? Yes, that's when you make a profit is when you sell it. That's when you enrich yourselves. Your net worth, sure, that might go up if you buy the stocks, but it's when you sell it, that's when you're really getting the cash and money.
Yeah.
So it's like he's learning this from the first time.
But yeah,
But it's having information that would allow you to make not just an educated guess, but you know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen, and you know that because of these decisions that are being passed, that these companies are going to become far more valuable because they've got certain deals, and then you bet on that. And that's what it is. And it's insider trading. We all know it is.
Now, the whole interview is, I think, well over an hour, so I won't dive into the whole thing. I recommend you taking a look at it. But it's fascinating to see culturally, those two clips in particular are just going viral on social media as everyone is highly entertained by Jim Gaffigan basically being an NPC, which I did a little research. The youth, they refer to an NPC as a non-playable character, and is a slang term used by millennials to denote people who act as if they are being told by someone to act in a specific manner, although that may not always be the case. So, I learned a little bit something thanks to the Urban Dictionary, and now we all have learned today. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. I really appreciate you taking time to click that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 3,000 subscribers by the end of August, and we really appreciate it because obviously the more we grow and develop, the better the content will become and the production will become. Also, don't forget to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.